Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world-class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
I'm Byron Marin.
And for today's episode, we're going to rank the 10 worst Disney attractions of all time, with number 1 being the worst. Now, just a couple disclaimers here up top. When we're talking about worst attractions, we did not include your typical, flat rides, your spinner rides, the rides where you could see all there is to it. Things like Astro Orbiter or the Golden Zephyr or the swirling alien ride that's over in Toy Story Land in Hollywood Studios. Byron tried to list Inside Out, Emotional Whirlwind.
I sure did.
Which I get.
Truly a bad ride.
It's a bad ride, but we're talking about rides that they were going for it to some degree. There was a point in time in which they thought this was a good idea and that people would like it. They put some effort in, and it went horribly awry. Not rides where, like Golden Zephyr, for example, or Astro Orbiter, where you get what you see, and it's serving the purpose that it's supposed to serve.
How much could it actually hurt you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're leaving those off. Let's go over how this is going to be scored. Our top 10 list is a consensus between the two of us, formed by a point system. Byron and I each made our own top 10, and a ranking of first is worth 10 points, a ranking of second is worth 9, and so on and so on and so on, and then I tallied the scores to create this aggregate ranking. It was a lot of math. As such, only I know the contents of this list, and the rankings will be revealed to not only you guys, but Byron as well too. This also means that the list can be vulnerable to what we refer to over here as a muscle job, in which somebody purposefully ranks something higher than it should be so that they could sneak it onto the aggregate list. Not so sure that was the case here. Oh, maybe. We'll also be sharing our picks for a ride that people generally hate, but we actually like. A guilty pleasure, if you will, so stay tuned to the end for that as well. And as always, please like and subscribe to keep us alive if you're watching the video version over on youtube.com/@FYApod, or if you're listening to the audio version, subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars, and consider supporting us on our fourth wall, which is basically a version of Patreon. You can join our fourth wall and become a park hopper, or an FYA hole, as Byron calls it, by heading to FYApod.com. It'll help us keep this madness going, and you'll get access to up to 3 monthly bonus shows in addition to this free main show that you're seeing every week. And that's also where our merch is. So hit that up.
And ad-free episodes.
Oh, yes, that's right. And ad-free episodes now, which we're working on uploading slowly. Eventually it'll catch up.
They might be there. But
eventually it'll catch up to the ones that are current. But alas, we must get into this. How hard was it for you to make this list, Byron?
I think it was easy to come up with a top 5. And then we decided to be a little more ambitious.
And do 10.
And try this out. And I don't know, there's so, I feel bad on a few of them. Where I'm like, am I being a little too harsh?
I feel no remorse.
Putting this on this list.
My list is perfect.
Maybe 1 or 2, I felt like maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but I don't know what to say. It's there's not too many.
Yes.
Horrible Disney rides. I think there's a lot that I find mediocre, or maybe some that are disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've forgotten a few. We'll see. Maybe your personal list will enlighten me.
Oh, it will. And we had some folks on our previous top 5 episodes, namely the top 5 Walt Disney World boat rides. Some people getting pretty angry. And look, these lists they're meant to be silly. They're goofy, but this list is perfect that I'm about to list. And I mean everything I'm about to say today. So if you get angry, it's warranted.
Pirates of the Caribbean, number 1 worst ride of all time.
Double down. No, but this list was actually pretty hard to make. Well, not really. Honestly, I had the 10 in mind. It was just, how do I rank these? In order. I will say with my list, there were some in which maybe my number 6 isn't as bad of a ride on paper as, say, number 3, 4, 5, whatever. The reason why I ranked said attraction at 4, 3, or whatever higher is because that ride is supposed to be better, and it's not. So I will say that I did let that eke into my list a little bit. So be on the lookout.
The expectation and payoff to that expectation is just not there, and that does make rides bad.
It does. Oh, also another disclaimer, we are including defunct rides in this. So this is of all time.
The worst of the worst of all time.
That being said, we're going to start things off right away here, and we're starting things off with a tie. So technically, we're covering 11 rides, actually.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I have no idea how this is going to shake out. So.
Now, in no particular order in terms of 10A and 10B, we're going to start with 10B. The 11th, I guess, or whatever. One of the worst rides of all time. The first that we're going to name here.
Number 11, catching a stray and making it into this list.
Is a ride that I'm honestly not that familiar with. And this is courtesy of Byron, who ranked Body Wars. He ranked this 7th on his list, which gives him a point. That gives it 4 points. So it snuck its way onto this list. And tied with the other one that we're going to name in a second.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have too much experience riding Body Wars. It closed, I believe, in around like 2007.
Gotcha.
This was an attraction that was built after Star Tours. They used the same simulator technology. This was at Epcot in what was called the Wonders of Life Pavilion. That was like... dedicated to health and the human body and stuff. This ride was sponsored by MetLife.
What?
At the time. There were some like feuds that went on between Disney and MetLife toward the end of the sponsorship. It ended in 2001. So this attraction crawled on without a sponsorship basically for its like last 5 to 6 years.
Man, if they had that today sponsored by MetLife, they'd get tackled by Luigi.
Oh no.
That person at the end would just get fucking a takedown. Anyways, continue on, Byron.
I only rode this, I believe, once out of memory as a kid. It's super hazy.
What's the ride system on this?
It's the same exact thing as Star Tours.
Oh, you said that, yeah. Star Tours.
I think even Industrial Light and Magic did the.
Walk me through it. Like what happens beginning to like very quickly, beginning, middle, end here, because I don't know anything about this ride.
Okay, like once again, memory's bad. I read up on this once upon a time, like years after the fact. But like long story short, like in the spirit of Disney doing these like fake corporations.
Yeah.
This is like I believe some futuristic corporation.
Yeah.
That I think actually I forget what the acronym stands for, but they were Met, which makes complete sense now that I know it was sponsored by MetLife.
Yeah, not
it was like
really.
MET, and it's I forget what exactly it stood for, but it was basically. You were shrunken down to the size of like a blood cell.
With miniaturization, it is now possible to go into the body aboard vehicles like this and actually witness immune system activities firsthand.
I don't know if you're treating a splinter on this body, but you're meeting this other doctor or whatever.
This is Dr. Cynthia Lair, one of our foremost immunologists. 10 minutes ago, she was miniaturized and beamed to the site of a splinter in the right index finger of a volunteer. Her objective is to conduct tests on the immune system's response to that splinter.
Hello, Dr. Lair. This is Captain Braddock aboard Bravo 229er. How's the weather in there?
Clear and warm, Captain. About 98.6. Actually, it's a little warmer by the infection site.
Like Ant-Man?
Pretty much like that, except you're going inside the human body. This entire ride.
A splinter will be fucking huge to Ant-Man.
It looks like a freaking like massive
It'd be like a javelin.
There it is now. There's a lot of activity out there.
I'm actually surprised they got away with this.
I was about to say, this sounds pretty awesome.
I understand this is on the worst rides. I have to, like, as a kid, I remember, like, enjoying it just because it's, like, a thrilling simulator.
I got to watch the POV of this.
I barely remember, but here's the big thing is it wasn't quite like Star Tours in the sense that this particular simulator just didn't, like, sync up quite right with how
I see
the visuals were, and people got extremely nauseous. Also, people felt very claustrophobic because the entire thing takes place in just the gross crevices of a body.
This sounds incredible.
Yeah, you should check out a POV of it. Like, it's a weird ride. I don't understand how it existed. I guess it, like, in some ways it's kind of metal, but just because it had such a bad reputation with, like, the nausea, which is ironic because there's another ride I did not put on this list that's also right next door to that.
Oh, yeah.
That is also known for that. I figured, and because this is defunct, and I felt this could be an opportunity to bring it up. But either way, I think it rightfully had to eventually go, because I don't think it quite lived up to Star Tours, and a lot of people did have a miserable experience. So me personally, I have like a soft spot for it because it just like it hits the nostalgia when I think of like early Epcot. However, I think a lot of people would disagree and consider this to be like one of the worst Disney rides to exist.
Well, we're going to continue on with our top 10 worst rides of all time, where Byron will praise them. And then I will say that this does
Next
sound
up,
amazing.
Cosmic Rewind.
Yeah, these sound amazing. That sounds amazing. It's like Star Tours and Osmosis Jones had a baby. When I was in 8th grade, you know how in school they would be like, oh, you could either do a presentation or you could make a video. So obviously I always chose the option to make a video. So I made a video called the circulatory system, where you shrink down to the size of like, I think like a blood cell, and you go through the bloodstream. And it was very stupid, but this reminds me of something that would be very much up my alley.
And as you know, like in the spirit of those thrill rides, like things go awry. I think like the doctor got like sucked into like a I don't know anatomy for ship, but like a capillary or something like that.
Okay.
Mayday! I'm being pulled into a capillary.
Hang on, I'm coming in. Brady, what's going on? I'm in the vein. Dr. Lair needs help.
You're basically on the hunt to try and save the doctor and yourselves at some point. And
the big bad of this is a splinter?
that's like why you go in there, but that's
then
not.
You find
like,
all
it's really
kinds
just
of
the
other
human.
shit.
Yeah, and then that was the thing. Like the white blood cells start like attacking.
Oh, it's like I see.
Yeah, they start attacking you. I believe once again, like there might be people out there that are more familiar and grew up with this ride. So chime off in the comments if I'm really botching this these plot details. But in the spirit of Universe of Energy, the little ship that you're in, like, shoots the white blood cells.
Jesus.
And I guess you lose power that way. And in order to escape the body, you had to essentially, once again, haze, like I've seen POVs in the past too of this, but you essentially sit in the brain and get like a quick charge from the brain power.
Brad, you use too much power. You can't speed out.
We need an energy boost.
The brain, it works on electrical impulse.
To get enough power to yank yourself out of the body
This kicks ass.
and get back to regular size.
Incredible! Do you realize what we just did?
I'll tell you what you did. You broke every regulation in the book.
Control, we were the first to go through the heart, lungs, and brain.
You also managed to pull off the most spectacular mission this place has ever seen. Congratulations.
I'm going to watch this right after we record.
I
This sounds
probably
awesome.
butchered the shit out of this, but
You know how
was,
Star Tours updated their films with like the new Star Wars trilogy and like Mandalorian and stuff? Do you think if this was still around today, they would have updated it with COVID? Moving on then. It's funny that you actually brought up one of the rides that we're going to cover here, because at 10A is Test Track 2.0.
Oh,
Now, this was not listed by Byron.
that's right.
This was listed at number 7 by me.
I mean, I'm okay with it being on this list. I couldn't quite get there, but I could see. I think a 7's not a bad ruling. by
Yeah,
any
well, it's a
means.
10. It's 10A in the official list, so it's technically 10.
Yeah,
It snuck in there.
I still have a hard time considering this a bad ride.
It's a bad ride.
I think if at the end of the day,
I'll help you. It's a bad ride.
And look, a lot of people would agree with you. Like, if you make the comparison to the original version, they had this terrific version of Test Track and that they just threw out the window, where I think most people that were not familiar with that version are still getting like a fun thrill experience. It's hard for me. Like, if anything, I consider it like to be a mediocre ride, but
It's a big nothing burger of a ride. They shouldn't have called it Test Track 2.0. It should have been called Test Track -1.
it's still the fastest Disney attraction ever made.
Good, because it gets me to the exit quicker. This is there's no idea. I mean, we did an episode about this. So you all already know I hate this ride. The redo going into the into the sim track.
Hey, look, we're getting the new version.
Thank
soon.
God. But yeah, there was no story to this. There was no discernible features in any of the tests for the most part that made you feel like there was a difference between the one you just did or the one that's coming up. And they kind of even botched the finale fake crashing into the barrier. They took away everything that was charming about this and digitized it and internetified it, and it ruined it. And the result is a mishmash experience where you're happy to just get outside eventually. Not good.
A little harsh, but yes, they did neuter this bad boy.
Perfectly
And,
harsh.
And I'm fine with this being
That's
on
at
the
10.
list.
It's at 10.
It's worth mentioning.
Okay, moving on. Moving on to number 9, which we have at Mission Space. I think I started to slur there because that's what this ride makes me feel like. It makes me feel like I'm hammered. I hate this ride so much. I listed this at number 5. You had it not on your list. Could you care to explain why? Because I don't know how you don't have this on your list, frankly. 10, and you have 10 rides that are worse than Mission Space.
I like this ride.
That's crazy, man.
But that being said, I should have been more objective. I feel like I was objective with a lot of my picks. I was not objective with this pick. I should have probably. I think this is mainly because I wanted to hold it in my honorable mentions. Maybe I'll use something else for that one because this truly is.
I had to protect
a ride that I like that I know a lot of people, a lot of you out there really despise.
I had to protect the credibility of the show by listing this.
I think it deserves to be on there. If I didn't have it as an honorable mention, I think I would have been objective and put it on the list.
There's a TikTok that's going viral right now at the time of this recording of somebody getting on getting on Mission Space for the first time. And they're like, oh, when you think it's going to be a fun simulator. And it's like shows them in the cabin, like playing with the buttons and goofing around. And then when it starts, it's just them panicking, like having a panic attack, which both you and I have had on this ride, which is even crazier that you don't have it on your list.
I didn't have a panic attack.
Yeah, you did.
When
we were stuck in that thing forever, and we were just like talking ourselves down.
Oh, I started just laughing. Well, for context, that was because when I had been on it a couple years prior, I got stuck in there for like 20 minutes.
The worst.
And I told you guys when we were getting on that, like 2 years, fast forward 2 years, we're at your bachelor party and we're all getting in. I think we had a couple drinks already.
Yes.
Or something, and I was like, man, the last time I got on this ride, I was like stuck here for like 20 minutes. It was miserable. And then we sit there, and then like 5 minutes later, someone came on the announcement saying there was like some delay or something. And I just started laughing because it's like, fuck, here we are again.
It's insane. It's like you're just looking through basically like almost like it's tunnel vision on a tiny little screen. You could barely move your head. They have that awful air that's blowing on your face. That's like the air they blow on your face on like an airplane, where it's air technically.
Flight of Passage.
Yeah, not like that. That actually air feels good. But it's like the air on like an airline where it's like technically it feels somewhat good on my face, but it's like there's a quality to it that's like artificial that makes it even worse. You can't move, and then the whole experience is very, very intense, more intense than it needed to be. No one needed it to be as intense as an actual flight simulator. That's crazy to do this to people, to trap them like this. It's an anxiety simulator.
I should have put the green version on this list.
Oh my God.
The green version that does nothing. Because that intensity, that launch, oh man, you feel so alive.
No, you don't.
Oh man,
if you mean by alive, you mean you feel like you're about to become unalive, then yes, you feel very alive.
Super exciting.
It's not.
It's like they say in that movie, the movie Rush, the closer to death you are, the more alive you feel.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
But that being said, this deserves to be on the list.
No, you could go on Reddit and just look at multiple threads of horror stories of people getting on this for the first time and having their day literally ruined. People just sitting on the planters outside an Epcot, just trying to collect their brains and their lives. Moving on, though, to number 8. The number 8 worst attraction, Disney attraction of all time, is Na'vi River Journey.
All right. I didn't put this one.
I didn't. Now, you could consider this a muscle job for me. I did list it at number 4, which gave it at 7 points.
Yeah, you put this. Yeah, you think this is worse than Mission Space?
I do.
Nice. we agree on something.
Here's the thing. This was the ride I was referring to before in my disclaimers of how I made my list. Now, is this a bad ride? It is a bad ride. And it deserves to be on this list. Does it deserve to be this high on the list? On my personal list, which was 4, ends up on the aggregate list here at number 8. I think the aggregate ranking's pretty fair. I think my list is probably a little high, but the reason why I had it so high, and by high I mean in terms of its badness, is because this comes in a marquee land that was built in modern times, was marketed as basically an amazing attraction that would be very immersive and very much in the world of Avatar. And then you get in there and you're essentially just looking at plants. You're looking at bioluminescent plants that you would just see outside one of the most boring nothing burger rides.
You don't like watching those little lily pads bounce?
Oh yeah,
when the shadow of like the frog-like things.
Yeah, little projections
bouncing up on them.
It's just, this is a ride where the expectations were extra high. All you heard coming into this was it had, at the time, the most advanced animatronic in the world, and it was going to be a boat ride through the the world of Avatar in Pandora. And I certainly expected much more from this, and it ends up being, Pirates is a slow-moving ride too, but you're going through very well thought out show scenes and environments with multiple characters to look at, perhaps characters that you would see in the films that came. In this particular case, we see none of that. Yeah. I think Jenny Nicholson was on record saying that this ride is as if like you went on Pirates of the Caribbean and there were no pirates until the very end, and then there was just one pirate animatronic, and you were like, cool.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this ride is.
It's also pretty wild that Pirates of the Caribbean was built in the 60s, and yet that ride system could handle so many more people than this can. Like, I don't know how, like, what happened, like, with...
It's awful.
How did they not anticipate, especially when working with a boat ride, if that they wouldn't be able to fit more people? It's pretty bonkers. And then...
How do they make it so devoid of life? And everywhere you look, it's like there is a semblance that there may be something lurking in the bushes, but there's nothing. It's like a Where's Waldo game, but there's no Waldo. It's just Where's.
Very, very serene. But here's the biggest issue with this ride. Not to say that those aren't legitimate issues. It's just those issues are magnified when the experience you're having prior to getting in that boat is atrocious.
Yeah.
So, like, think about it this way. It's like some people would have a much shittier time during their 4 minutes on mission space.
Yes.
However, the minutes leading up to getting on mission space, pretty damn easy.
Yes.
Not too bad. So I guess you're left with the question of, would you rather suffer 4 minutes of mission space but not suffer at all going into those 4 minutes, or suffer an hour in a Navi River journey line that is boring as all fuck?
It's one of the worst queues in the entire
And then you kind of
resort.
sit and are peaceful for 4 minutes, but ultimately getting nothing but that animatronic at the end.
Yes.
So in that sense, I do feel like the overall experience for Mission Space is slightly better.
You're waiting 60 minutes for like a meet and greet with an animatronic, essentially, is what this ride is. And it's marketed as a river adventure.
It's a kind of funny way to put it, because like if you really just want to like see an animatronic and not wait, I guess you could just walk into that Galaxy's Edge gift shop.
Yeah, you
like
could.
the Doc Andar or whatever.
Yeah.
Was that what his name? I forget.
It's called Navi River Journey. Where's the journey? What changes from point A to point B?
I mean, I guess you are traversing a river.
You technically are moving. I guess, yes, you are moving. Not a lot going on
here. Like, there's no conflict in this.
It's a bad ride. And look, maybe that's a hot take. I feel like people hate this ride. I feel like I'm not alone here.
There's no way in hell they like didn't get through like a good chunk of development and then have to cut like a bunch of shit. Like it feels like
they took a bunch
that
out,
mid-development they had to.
Yeah, they gave the hatchet job. They just neutered it completely. I'd like to think that's the case.
I'm just kind of surprised.
I'll give the benefit of the doubt.
I'm surprised that Uncle Jim allowed this.
I don't know. I think he was very focused on making Flight of Passage, which kicks ass. That's another thing, is it's really hurt by being next to an attraction that's so good and worth all the shit you have to go through to get on it. This is just not worth it. Especially, I couldn't even imagine getting on Flight of Passage and then going on this right after that, waiting the hour.
Yeah.
I would be furious. Absolutely furious.
Totally.
I knew it was like not particularly, like you heard, it's like, oh, maybe it's not an e-ticket going in. So I kind of figured, okay, well, maybe Pirates by nowadays standards isn't an e-ticket, so maybe it's like that. And if that's the bar, it's slamming its head on the floor. It's crazy.
Yeah. It was crazy in the inaugural years of Pandora World of Avatar being open. You could see like a stark contrast. Yes, Navi River Journey was always like an hour wait, but you wouldn't see Flight of Passage being under like 3 hours or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they're like neck and neck, like more often than you'd really like to see. And when someone who's not familiar with the park sees like Navi River Journey, an hour. Flight of Passage, an hour and a half. You got to think, oh, this Navi River Journey must also really kick ass.
You thought wrong, friend. So let's move on here, though. We're actually going to skip 7 because we have a tie at 6. So we're going to go 6A and 6B. So 6B is Stitch's Great Escape. Okay, I mean, not a lot of arguments here.
I don't think anyone familiar with this attraction shouldn't be surprised this is on the list. This is where extraterrestrial alien encounter once stood. It's very much a reskinned version of that. And it's just, I've said this before, I find this to be a very insulting attraction. It's just like, I feel like the Stitch just breaks out, makes loud noises at you, burps at you, you smell shitty things. It's just really not fun.
Yeah.
It really feels unnecessary that you have like the over the head kind of restraints. It
well,
felt
I mean, it's
more
there for
necessary
when he's bouncing around, you know.
It's one of the only Disney attractions I've ever like walked out of being like, that was a complete waste of my time. And I remember walking out and I feel really insulted for being forced to do that. Like, I can't believe they did that to me.
No, I could see why people hate this ride, honestly. Now, you listed it at, let's see, where was this on your list? This was number 5 on Byron's list. This was number 9 on my list. So I don't hate this ride as much as other people do, particularly because I do think it still maintains some of the spooky atmosphere that extraterrestrial does. I still found it like to be somewhat compelling when I got on it. Now there is the stuff where he like farts directly into your mouth and things like that. But you know, what are you gonna do? Moving on. Let's go to 6A, the 6th worst Disney ride of all time. Tomorrowland Speedway. Now, this is right on the cusp. I will admit that. This is like one of those rides where it could be in the category of what you see is what you get, but it's more substantial in terms of footprint, I would say, than any of those other kinds of rides, like an Autopia, except this isn't as fun as Autopia. There's really nothing to this ride. It's boring. It doesn't really offer you anything. I guess it gives your kids the ability to drive, but they're not really looking at anything special. They're just inhaling gas fumes.
I think the name itself adheres to
true.
Why this is on the list.
That's true.
To call something a speedway and then kind of run at Autopia speed, why it works for Autopia is that it feels a little more intimate. It's not out in like just this open space.
Yeah.
Where you feel like you should be going fast.
No, you're not weaving through like plants and like other things interesting to look at like you do in Autopia.
Yeah. No, I think Autopia really benefits from like not really seeing too far ahead of what's next.
Yes.
And what's around there. There's even little off-roading looking elements.
It's fun. It switches it up. Autopia is also selling you an experience where you are driving a car, essentially, in like a little outdoor city, essentially.
Yes, you're not supposed to be on a racetrack like this, going 2 miles an hour.
No, you're not.
At best, depending on whether or not little Timmy up ahead can push his foot down hard enough.
Yeah, it definitely is like the worst go-karts of all time. Based on the title alone, it's very disappointing. And I know a lot of you folks over in Walt Disney World that's your home park. You hate this ride. And I get it. I've been on it one time and I was like, what the hell was that? That was awful. Moving on to number 5. We are now in the top 5 worst attractions in Disney history. Number 5. This was not on Byron's list somehow, but it was on mine, and it's Rocket Rods. Yeah, I was waiting to see his reaction when I said it. I was like, how is this not on your list? One of the most doomed attractions in Disney history. So doomed, in fact, that the bones of it still sit above us in Tomorrowland. It's rotting, decomposed corpse still stinking up Tomorrowland in 2025. It's awful. Anybody who had the rare opportunity to get on this ride, and I say rare not just because it was around for a little amount of time, but rare because it rarely worked. I did get on this ride one time, and the time I did get on, it broke down. And up to getting on the ride, it broke down several times. I waited 3.5 hours essentially for this ride, and maybe the worst use of my time in a theme park, honestly.
I mean, that's fair. Look, I whiffed it. I should have had this on the
That's
list.
crazy.
I totally forgot about this one.
I had this at number
totally
2.
forgot about it. And I've ridden this numerous times.
That's crazy, dude.
Which is impressive considering, I'm telling myself, that's impressive considering how...
yeah, I can't believe you got on multiple times.
The first time I went on it, I waited like 3 hours because it kept breaking down.
Yes.
I remember. I have like legit, like livid or like vivid memories.
Vivid. Freudian slip there.
Both, really. And just being on like what felt like under, I guess it's where Buzz Lightyear is now,
Yeah.
but in these long set of spirally switchbacks.
The worst.
For hours and hours in there. But as a little 8-year-old going on it, I got to tell you, it was a night ride. It went fast. It's the fastest Disney ride I had been on at the time, I believe.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun.
For those who don't know, Rocket Rods took the place of Disneyland's People Mover and used the same track essentially as the People Mover. And that was a problem for a variety of reasons because this was marketed as the fast Disney ride. It's like its first, I would say, move into thrill, like true thrill. Because I believe this went 60 or something like that. We haven't covered this right.
Not even close.
That's what they wanted you to think it went.
Oh man,
Maybe it's like 40.
I think it went like 35.
Oh, interesting.
Or something like that. Maybe 42.
Well, whatever it went too fast because it went that fast on the straightaways, but it had to slow down dramatically on the turns. Otherwise, it would literally break the track. And so they had a computer system to monitor that.
They converted People Mover, they did not bank these turns.
Yes, which puts a lot of stress on the structure.
Yes, so you can't, anytime a turn came up, they would have to slow down. And yet, even after that, this thing still compromised the structural foundation of basically what was People Mover, like that went all through Tomorrowland, where now it's like not only did it kill People Mover, it was like, oh, you could also never come back unless they like rebuilt everything.
No, it destroyed everything. If you want to figure out what this ride did feel like, wait till about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, get in your car, go to your local mall's abandoned parking lot, and accelerate. Push your foot all the way into the ground, and then push your foot all the way into the ground, immediately brake, and then do that about 10 times in a row of it was grating, like the most grating experience. And here's the thing too, the marketing for it was super cool. The cars looked amazing, and walking through Tomorrowland, the noise that these cars made sounded so fucking cool.
Yeah.
It made you think, God, I want to get on that ride. This is a land that at the time kind of lacked kinetic energy.
Mm-hmm. It like pop a wheelie when it took off.
It was sick.
Yes, and the kinetic energy was glorious, so it really pulled people in.
And it tricked you. And it was like, oh, wouldn't that be great if I got on that? This is seared into my mind as one of the only times I've ever seen my dad visibly angry at Disneyland. Because I just remember we were in those aforementioned switchbacks, and I just remember him just kind of like rubbing his brow with his like 2 fingers like this, and just looking at his watch and going, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. And I just remember thinking, like, even as a kid, like, this is a lot. And then, of course, it breaks down when we were on it, and he was so angry. But no, this is an ill-fated ride, not long for this earth for good reason, and it took People Mover away from us. Therefore, I listed it at number 2, and it ends up at number 5 on our aggregate list of worst Disney rides of all time. Moving on to number 4, which is Journey into Your Imagination. Now, this has a score of 10, and Byron ranked it at 2. I ranked it at 10. Now, I will say, I just put Journey into Imagination with Figment. Journey into Your Imagination...
That's more accurate. A 10's more accurate for that one.
Journey into Your Imagination is technically a different ride. Not really. Very, very minor differences than Journey into Imagination with Figment. So I just combined the two of those to give it the score of 10. Byron, why was this so high on your list?
Well, I never rode the original, unfortunately.
Which was a masterpiece by all accounts. It looks crazy.
Just based off what I've seen, what I've heard. Oh my God. Scam. Fucking scam caller.
Yeah, it's Figment. I hope you're not ranking me high, Byron.
No, it's Nigel Channing, Eric Idle coming after us.
Yeah.
But no, it's what was I saying? Yes, they had this incredible turntable sequence. They had the Dream Finder and this cute dynamic between him and Figment, this lovable little dragon.
Yes.
And they stripped it all away, and specifically for Journey into Your Imagination, they barely had Figment featured at all.
Yes.
And I believe I did ride this in the year, I think it was the year 2000 or 2001. I believe this was the version I rode, and I don't remember a lot of it. I was pretty young. Revisiting the footage, it's a nothing burger of a ride. Like the one that they have now, because they had to course correct really quickly.
Yes.
Like within a matter of like a couple years, maybe even less. The reception was so bad for Journey into Your Imagination, because they had what they had done is they had Honey, I Shrunk the Audience in there since like 1994 as part of the Imagination Pavilion, and they're like, you know what? Let's just turn the whole thing into this Imagination Institute. And you know what? Dream Finder, fuck that old man. Like let's bring Nigel Channing into this as well. We're pretty much going to reduce Figment into far from anything pivotal or consequential in this attraction. They immediately realized, based on how awful the reception was of this, to put Figment like back into like, or put him in throughout the ride. So now what it is you're still going through a lot of these like imagination types of tests, like the sound, like, and I don't know,
they added him in the most annoying ways possible.
So now they basically have Figment like crashing the party, like entering all these tests, but that wasn't even there before. Like Figment was like barely ever even in it.
Yeah.
Or, like maybe like featured briefly like in a pre-show, or so now they have him basically trolling Nigel Channing the entire time, which I guess like makes it a little more entertaining, but it's still very trollish and it's still not really good.
I mean, it's also a ride where he farts in your face.
That's right.
I know they like farting in your face at this resort.
The nose knows.
It's crazy. We covered this ride. Apparently the scent of that is coffee.
That's right.
Which is crazy. Just so much. I suppose if I smelled freshly ground coffee, but then someone told me I just passed gas, it would become disgusting immediately.
Yeah.
Which is
where
what
I guess like the
ride.
visual of it tricks you into anticipating that, and then
it's a lot. But I get it. I had it on my list.
I still enjoy going on it, funny enough. But that's also, I guess that's kind of like that movie, The Room, where it's like so bad that a lot of why I enjoy going on it is like riding it with people that hadn't been on it.
I certainly enjoy it. But moving on, let's go to the top 3. Number 3 is Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage with 13 points. I had this at number 6. Byron had it at number 3. So clearly we both do not like this ride.
I don't know anyone that does.
It's a terrible ride.
Not one person I know is willing to fight for this ride, or even go as far as to say, look, it's not that bad. I don't even hear anyone that goes to that length.
No.
At all.
Now, did you like the ride that preceded it?
That's the weird thing, is I did love that ride.
I did love that ride too.
I don't know if it had to do with me being like a kid and not feeling as claustrophobic in there, because it's not like the Submarines are any smaller.
No, that's what's interesting about it, because it feels like it got more claustrophobic and uncomfortable with the Nemo overlay, and I don't know why.
I think it also helps that there weren't like projections like up against the window for half of it.
Yeah.
I don't think that helps.
I went on with my nephews recently. They hated this ride. Like, absolutely hated it. They felt confined. They were like, I want to get off. And that's when I knew, this ride really does suck. Because the projection technology is very outdated now. The outside of it is beautiful, by the way. The lagoon looks so cool.
They, like, the way they color that water.
Like, if they got rid of this ride.
Appeasing. That's the best part about this ride is how the kinetic energy that they bring running along the water. It's a great ride to look at.
It is.
Just look at it.
Yeah, you don't need to get on.
No, your experience is not gonna really be better. It's kind of like Aquatopia at Tokyo Disney Sea.
Yeah.
A better ride to look at than ride.
I don't necessarily think it's a really bad ride on paper, because it does have some animatronic effects. It does have the projections mixed with the live action practical effects. it just doesn't result in a pleasurable experience for something. And this is coming from me, who I do like Finding Nemo, the IP, quite a bit, but there's just nothing that's satisfying about this. It just doesn't mix. They don't mix in a way that's convincing. So it just feels like you're watching a bad Finding Nemo movie underwater, trapped in a little box, surrounded by screaming children.
As a kid writing the original Submarine Voyage,
yes,
it felt like you actually were traversing a lot of ocean.
It did. There was a feeling of
space.
wonder that is missing from this.
This one, it feels like, I mean, for all you care, you're going in like, you're spinning around in a 10-foot circle. Like it doesn't feel big.
No. I mean, I just went to Tokyo Disney Sea and I got in their 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride, which is, you're not even in water in that one. They trick you into thinking you're in water, and similarly small craft, but the wonder was there and the feeling of exploration, and it's just sold so much better than this. Like this,
than a ride that actually is underwater.
Yeah, the fact that this ride is even underwater is not something you're even really thinking about, because you're seeing these projections and you're just thinking like, okay, I'm clearly just moving around in a circle. Whereas in Submarine Voyage, everything was practical and it looked like it belonged in the same world, so it never took me out of it. And also even like the dive sequence, for some reason, I think they're pretty similar. I just buy it more in the other version.
Yeah. I can't really figure out if it was just me being younger, or I think that's why it's helpful that you're riding with your nephews and they still hate it.
No, they hated it. And this ride is rocking like a 5 to 10 minute wait usually, and that's because people just don't like this ride, even though it's a popular IP.
I don't think a great Finding Nemo ride exists.
I mean, because the Sea with Nemo and Friends is also not
I guess
great.
just pulling off the ocean's hard to do. But then again, I guess if they went the 20,000 Leagues at Tokyo route and use like that ride tech for a Finding Nemo ride, that would probably be the best way to do it. But
yeah, I don't know. There's just something about the mixing of the water and the projections that just is funky. But no, it's
maybe post 2020 being stuck in a little underwater missile.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable
with like
ride.
50 people.
We have not covered it on this podcast yet, so who knows if it's a world-class attraction.
That's true. just because an attraction is on this list does not mean it's not a world-class attraction.
But I'll tell you what's not a world-class attraction. The next ride that is number 2. Number 2 is Web Slingers. Oh man! That's spicy.
I don't think I'm even that mad about it.
I think it feels ridiculous that would be the second worst ride in Disney attraction history. However, the fact that it's built in this era and it's that bad, and it's worse than versions of the same ride system that predate it, it's not good. It's
not even just worse in terms of ride systems. It's worse in terms of IPs. There's a better Spider-Man ride than it. Yeah. There's a better like shooting ride than it.
Yeah.
Various better shooting rides than obviously. It's a shitty version of Toy Story Mania. It's a shitty version of The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man.
I'd even prefer Men in Black over this ride.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Cake. Yeah. Without the IP or anything, you had no expectations. There's no wait. You're still like, not worth it. But to wrap this into Spider-Man,
it's crazy.
To open with Avengers Campus when there's already such a good pre-existing Spider-Man ride.
I have to say though, without that though, even without the context of this is with Avengers Campus, it was the only thing that opened with that campus. It's a Spider-Man IP ride. It's a bad ride. Like there is nothing about it that's exciting. You get exhausted. Every scene feels like the last. You're not seeing any memorable environments.
It's a chore.
You're not even seeing any villains that you recognize. You're seeing this kind of like faceless spider-bot horde. Like, and there's nothing compelling about it. It really just feels like they were trying to sell those toys, and the experience feels like that. It's a very unenjoyable experience. I think it was the beginning of the end of screen tech, hopefully, for Disney rides, because it feels like, we said this in the episode, it just feels like they did this, saw the reception, and were like, we're not going to do that again. But then again, I think the Avengers e-ticket is going to be a screen-based attraction as well. So who knows? It's just, I think this ride represents the worst of what the modern tech ride has become today. Like,
fair.
It started with, Transformers and I guess even the original Spider-Man, but it does it well with live action there. And then, Forbidden Journey. and then, escalates over into like Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem over in Universal Studios and things like that. Things that are just so reliant on screen tech that that's all it is. I think they figured out they could get away with making an environment that would be hard to render physically, so they just did it with screens, and they rode that a little bit too hard and got carried away, and this is the result of that. It's a result of all the bad kind of culminating in one giant turd, essentially. And I think for that reason, it deserves a spot on this list, high up on this list, because it's a cautionary tale, hopefully, of what, theme parks could have been had this been received well. Clearly, it was not received well, but we'll see. We'll see what the Avengers e-ticket looks like. We'll see what Epic Universe looks like with all their screen rides. Hopefully not. Yeah, I don't know.
That's the weird thing is they had the template already. Like they had like the cheat sheet. They knew what not to do, and they did it.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's almost like they needed something to open the land with, and so this is what they came up with. It just feels like their hands were tied a little bit.
They had the pressure to introduce a new ride because they already had Mission Breakout, but that opened prior to Avengers Campus. And
we talked about this in the Spider-Man episode too. Mission Breakout doesn't even fit thematically or story-wise with Avengers Campus.
No, not necessarily.
It's an outer space museum.
But I think because they felt like they needed a ride and Avengers was not going to be ready with this land, the need to have a ride just for the sake of having a ride, they did it. Whereas perhaps like a show or a walkthrough or some elaborate like meet and greet would have been fine in that footprint, and they tried to force a ride.
Yeah, I mean, it's so small of a footprint, the queue has to be outside. In switchbacks.
Yeah, they repurposed a theater. It's tough to be a bug.
I wish it was tough to be a bug still. Moving on to the number one worst ride in Disney history. It's not going to be a surprise here. It was number one on both Byron and I's lists. It's Superstar Limo. We all knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any argument here. If you want to argue with our 2 through 10, or 2 through 11 technically, because we had a 10A, 10B, go for it. I don't think you could debate this number one. And if you don't think it's number one, you definitely know it's in top 5 or top 3. This is one of the greatest misfires in Disney history, I think. Everything about it was poorly executed and conceived. And how long was this even alive?
Oh, I'd say, I think it might have been less than a year. It might have maybe been a little over a year.
I'm going to look that up right now. How long was this?
Basically, they decided, and this is in California Adventure, by the way. This is a brand new California Adventure that was already getting like wrecked critically, that didn't have that many rides, not that many rides for kids too, and yet they still felt that the park was better off closing this ride than having it run. Which is bonkers.
Over or under a year, how long did this ride stay open?
I'd say under a year.
It was almost 11 months, and it was closed. And like you just said, a ride that's starved, or a park rather, that's starved for rides. A pretty empty lineup that California Adventure opened up with. Like you mentioned, it is better to have an empty space than to have this operating because it was that embarrassing. And to recoup some of the cost, very famously when they put the Monsters, Inc. ride in its footprint, they kept the animatronics and just put CDC outfits over them just to kind of just save some money. That's how far under they probably were on this ride. And also, like, it opened at a time when the Princess Diana accident was, they were dealt
a bad hand with that. Because they had a different ride in mind.
They wanted it to be fast.
They had
limo.
It was going to be like running away from the paparazzi, and yes, like more of a thrilling attraction. And they had to take a pivot because of that tragedy. Was there also a budget cut potentially that like got it down to like reduced it to what this is,
probably,
or what this became
because of the Disneyland Paris debacle?
Like, I don't know if you can blame all of this on the Diana tragedy.
The thing is too, just even the look of the ride is such a strange choice. Like, whose choice was it to make them all caricatures? Like, I get that could be kind of a funny like satire perhaps, or just a commentary on like celebrity culture. However, it's horrifying to look at.
Look,
And even like the pre-show video that you remember the pre-show video when you were standing in line for it?
Joanne Rivers?
Joan Rivers is there, and she's also caricaturized, and so it looks terrifying. It's really scary. This ride is the stuff of nightmares.
I can't to say this is a Disney attraction.
Yes,
wild, and I think this is what like it boils down to. And by the way, I think if there was one ride that I like wish I could pull like Walt from the grave from and plop, and plop him into to get his react. Because think about it this way: is when like obviously there's like a lot of lands that are very much fictional. Actually, I'd say the high majority of any sort of Disney park land or area, even the places that are based off like real locations, kind of create this sanitized like fantasized version of it, like Main Street USA, New Orleans Square, Sunset Boulevard, MGM or Hollywood Studios, where like for example Sunset Boulevard, walking that down to Tower of Terror compared to like walking Sunset Boulevard like here where we're at, like stark contrast of the vibe.
Yes,
it's going to be very different. For whatever reason, Superstar Limo decided, you know what, like I know in the past we've created this like glamorized, like, you know, the beautiful vision of Hollywood. We're going to show like the best stuff of Hollywood. Instead, we're going to give them like the worst stereotypes of Hollywood. Like the real greaseball shit.
Like the seedy version of Hollywood and Los Angeles. It feels that way too. I never thought about like if you could pull Walt out of his coffin, what would he think? He'd probably be like, put me back. Like he'd probably think like, what happened to my park? I don't want to be involved in this anymore. Because it is crazy that this is what they came up with. Also, just like there's no story to it really. You're just like in a limo going through and you're just seeing celebrities.
You're a star, Ryan.
Oh my God.
That's how like I think you get in and you're immediately like, oh, you must be that new star. And then this like, oh, here's your new agent. And it's this
crazy.
The freaking slimiest looking
Swifty here, babe. Welcome to Hollywood.
Once again, the worst stereotypes.
Well, it kind of was
of
like
Hollywood.
It was basically the thesis of what was wrong with California Adventure in its first, inception. There's no reason to have a park that has like a Disney-fied version of the highlight reels of that state. Like you go to California, you're just going to go to Hollywood. You're going to go to the mountains. You're going to go to you don't need it all in some strange highlight reel in a theme park. Like the vision of it was strange to begin with. And this ride feels like it was like the exclamation point at the end of California Adventure, where it was all wrong to begin with, and this ride was like the head of the snake a little bit.
You watch like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You watch like La La Land.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful, like there are beautiful things to paint of the Hollywood experience.
Or you could tell there's a love letter aspect of those. Like it comes from somebody who maybe has critiques of Los Angeles, but still loves Los Angeles.
Yes. And there's even parts of California Adventure, say like Grizzly Peak or the Golden State area, where at least there was an attempt at showing this love letter to places in California.
Yes.
I don't know how this was selling Hollywood.
I don't know what this is.
It's weird. It's got like this weird used car salesman sort of.
I felt gross when I was on this ride. I have to say, and I'm just making up a section as I go right here, because since we've now revealed our top 10 of this list, Byron, which one would you bring back to life? Or which one would you want to get on now?
Oh, that's a good question.
If it exists now, you could get on it right now, or if it's no longer of this earth.
Do I just get to ride it once, or is it back forever?
Back forever.
Okay, so it's not Superstar Limo. That would be a short-lived joke. I'm not going to put people through that. If there's one that I would bring back forever.
Well, I mean, of the defunct attractions, we have Test Track 2.0, we have Stitch's Great Escape, Rocket Rods, and Superstar Limo.
Oh. Funny enough. You know what? Fuck it. I'm bringing Body Wars back.
What the fuck, dude? Oh, yeah, I guess there was Body Wars.
I would bring Body Wars back.
No, actually, that sounds about right. I think I might bring Superstar Limo back. just for the hell of
just for it to always be the
just for the like
bye bye Monsters Inc.
There's nothing redeeming about it, and I think that's kind of funny. I do want to get on it again really badly.
I would, but I feel like it would just run its. I got to think about the world at large, and
yeah.
I think it's like I'm thinking is Wonders of Life, is that pavilion just sitting dormant still? I think it is.
I'm not sure.
I don't think anything is taken like. I think it might just be storage. Nothing's being used there. That's why I don't even feel. I considered bringing rocket rods back because at least then you would have like some kinetic energy in Tomorrowland. Yeah, if they're able to get rocket rods to work,
the kinetic energy you get
magically
is the maintenance guys walking across
the foundation.
Just a bunch of maintenance guys standing over Tomorrowland.
Monorail like tree leaves like just hanging over it. But I mean, obviously, the People Mover. I wish that came back. But I think Body Wars would be my choice.
Let's move on to some honorable mentions. This is one ride from each of our lists, our personal lists that didn't make it onto the official aggregate list. Starting with Byron.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Primeval Whirl.
Wait, on the railroad?
No. Not World, Primeval Whirl.
Oh, okay. Oh.
This is the roller coaster that was tucked in the back of Dino-Land
Okay,
USA.
I thought I misheard you. Sorry.
Is a very uncomfortable spinning roller coaster. I guess I enjoyed it to a certain extent, but only just because I enjoyed hearing other people in pain, like my family members with me. It's like just. Once again, this is really a really tacky attraction.
Yeah.
I mean, they took this thing out like long ago. Like it didn't even make it to the this upcoming closure of Dino-Land. It didn't make sense in what was otherwise like a very beautiful Animal Kingdom park. I mean, like this kind of falls in line with a lot of Dino-Land USA.
Yeah.
Like, could I have thrown like Triceratops Spin in here? It's like, no, because like that's like you said, it's like the flat ride situation where yes, they like to scatter these like spinning Dumbo type rides around the resort. It's fine. Like I think they serve a purpose. Whereas this was like an actual like roller coaster and could get people to expect more. But literally I have ridden this same type of roller coaster at like multiple fairs.
Yeah. I mean, well, you could say the same for Goofy Sky School over in California Adventure.
Goofy Sky School, I give a notch above this one. I actually think Goofy Sky School has a slightly better layout, even if it doesn't have the spinning to it.
It has some fun theming on there too.
At least the theming is like better, and I actually do enjoy the thrill of like almost getting like yeeted over the side.
Yeah.
With those laterals are actually like pretty fun. Primeval Whirl was just a bad roller coaster.
I agree.
So
that's a good one. My honorable mention. Oh man. I'm going to switch it. I was going to do Frozen Ever After, but I think it serves a purpose. I'm going to switch it to something that was actually on Byron's list.
That's right. Okay, I'm glad you're covering because this is the other one I wanted to bring up.
Indiana Jones and the Temple du Peril.
Mm-hmm.
This is in Disneyland Paris. It's also a version of it. It's called Raging Spirits over in Tokyo Disney Sea. This is a horrible roller coaster. A very, very bad roller coaster.
And what's really like the worst part about it too is it looks good until you get on it.
Yeah, it didn't look good from the outside.
Everyone wants that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom experience, like that mine cart chase scene through the temple at the end.
It seems like it's right there. It's a
Everyone wants that roller coaster. Everyone still thinks that they're going to get that experience with Donkey Kong. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't heard great things.
Yeah, this one is just a herky-jerk type of coaster.
Yeah.
It's like a headbanger. It's got a loop, but it's not that enjoyable.
No, it's a bad ride.
It's almost like it takes place inside like a wild mouse footprint, yet it's this roller coaster with a loop.
It's extremely uncomfortable. All the elements of it are kind of shortchanged because of the footprint and the size of it, so none of them are even pleasing. It just kind of feels like an empty calories kind of ride.
Yeah, which makes it all the weirder that they cloned this over to Disney Sea, where they had the money to build something good.
I know. It's a very painful ride too.
Yeah, no, it's a headbanger.
Like
it's got really rough track profiling.
Yes. It's rough. It's
like,
a rough
almost
ride.
like unbaked turns at times that kind of should be banked better.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like it really isn't that wild mouse footprint. It sucks because it looks great from the outside. And for Paris's version, calling it Indiana Jones, and there's no Indiana Jones or any
there's no theming on it at all.
It just seemed like it's a temple. Like it looks cool, but there is no story with it. There's not
even onboard audio from like the Indiana Jones
none of that
franchise,
stuff.
one of the most recognizable film scores of all time. Let's not use that.
It's a very disappointing.
That would have given this ride
experience.
so much more juice if they had just put the score sync to this.
Literally
to this ride.
anything, and they didn't. You know what's funny is there's actually a point in time when the Paris version, at least, went backwards.
I think
when it
hear about
originally ran, it was backwards.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting, but that also might have been worse.
It might be even more painful.
Yeah, because you're not anticipating the herky jerk.
No, it's a real missed opportunity of what should be a layup. Maybe one day we'll see the minecart roller coaster finally conceived. I guess Big Thunder, but that's not like a minecart as in the sense of it would be in Indiana Jones. And here's Shane walking by.
Howdy, yeah.
With the door open? There's no one here.
We like to live dangerously.
Moving on. Let's end this off with dishonorable mentions, or in this case, guilty pleasures is a more apt description, because we'll now each list a ride that people generally hate, but we actually love.
Oh no, this is tough because mine's already on the list, and now I have to try and think of a new one.
Well, we can start with mine then.
Yeah,
mine is Figment.
Oh, that was on the list too.
It is. I don't give a shit.
Oh yeah, you do enjoy this.
I
ride.
do love this ride. I do love this ride, sir. That's why I have it number 10 on my list. I knew I needed to put it on there. I will acknowledge that the vast majority of people that aren't theme park sickos, that aren't lining up for Figment popcorn buckets, hate this ride. And I could see why. It's a ride designed to torture you, to mock you, to make you feel stupid. It does all of those things, and I happen to enjoy when something like that happens to me, because it's what I deserve. And I think it's funny that it makes you sit there, straps you down while he farts in your face. But I do think there is still merit to the ride. There is a story. It is fun to go through an imagination lab and explore the different senses that humans have. And I enjoy it. Sue me. Whatever. I get why you hate it, but I think it's very funny. I really do. I think it's an incredibly funny ride with an incredibly funny little dragon. And I love how much he hates Nigel. I love it. I love this guy. And it's fun to watch somebody just torture another human.
That's fair. I think you and Figment have a lot in common.
I think we do have a lot in common.
I think that is like your that's yeah, I see a lot of those qualities in you.
Thank you. That's the highest compliment someone could ever pay me.
I could see you putting down a cold one.
Yeah, with Figment.
Yeah.
I'm sure he probably would be trolling me, and I'd be like, this is great. This is awesome. Like Mari, my wife, met Larry David once, and he was like very cranky with her, and she was like, this is great. That's exactly what you want Larry David
just
to be.
as advertised.
That's exactly what you want him to be. If I ever met Figment, I know I'm not going to meet him because he's an animated purple dragon, but if I ever met Figment, I'd shake his little claw, and he'd probably grab my hand and burp in my mouth or something like that. But I love this guy. It's a fun ride. I don't care.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a good choice.
What's
I
yours?
do specifically enjoy riding that ride with you because
It's very good.
You really get a kick out of it.
I think it's very funny.
I am going to go with another Epcot. Epcot's getting featured a lot, by the way.
Which is weird because I think it's the best Disney World park.
I think I'm there. I think World Showcase really does that for me.
It pushes it over the line.
Yeah, because I'm a longtime Animal Kingdom lover.
That's number 2 for me.
And I think that might be a close second now, just because I think there is more to do at Epcot. You could spend more hours at Epcot.
Yeah.
Potentially breaking it into a 2-day experience if you really want to.
Perhaps, yes.
But another Epcot attraction showing up in this episode.
Oh, it's not Mission Space, is it, you bastard?
It's not Mission Space because we already talked about it at length.
Oh, thank God.
So I don't want to be redundant, even though I've already mentioned that I do like that ride. But I could also respect that a lot of people, perhaps most people, truly hate Mission Space.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Living with the Land. That is a ride that I enjoy, but I believe that outside of our theme park sicko bubble, people fucking hate that ride.
Dude, you are,
People probably think it is one of the worst. Like, if you took a survey at the exit of Epcot of like to just average tourists, like, what was your least favorite ride? I bet Living with the Land would be up there in votes, maybe right behind Mission Space
and Figment.
Maybe Figment too.
It's interesting because I looked at a couple Reddit threads of like, what do people consider the worst ride in the resort, and there was constant comments from the moderators saying like anybody that mentions Living with the Land will be banned. I think they were joking, but I thought that was really funny. And it does speak to the idea that the general public probably hates that ride. They just don't appreciate the brilliance of it.
I'm sorry, I don't trust people enough to appreciate like floating through like 10 greenhouses on their family vacation that they spent thousands of dollars for.
Yeah, my bachelor party of friends, all 10 of us, not including or 10 of us including me, all 9 of them other than Byron were hating life. They were accusing Byron and I of trolling and that we were getting joy out of their misery.
We put them through there like under the best conditions.
It was sunset. It was a sunset ride.
Beautiful.
I don't know how you don't enjoy that, but they did not have a good time. And to this day, they still call us both trolls for claiming it's a great ride. And it is a great ride.
And you are a troll because you put it number 1 for the Walt Disney World boat ride.
As it deserves to be. I stand by that. I stand by what I said in that episode. I think it's one of the most unique boat rides in the world, which you could make an argument then that it might be the best boat ride in the world.
I personally love it. That's why it's going to be my
That's fair.
dishonorable mention.
That's a really sneaky way to wedge that in there. I appreciate that.
Live with the land while you can, right?
Okay, well, let's close this off by each saying our own personal top 10s for posterity. Mine was number 10, Journey into Imagination with Figment. Number 9, Stitch's Great Escape. Number 8, Tomorrowland Speedway. Number 7, Test Track 2.0. Number 6, Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage. Number 5, Mission Space. Number 4, Navi River Journey. Number 3, Web Slingers. Number 2, Rocket Rods. And number 1, Superstar Limo. And Byron, his number 10 was Indiana Jones and the Temple du Peril. Number 9 was, this is a crazy thing to put, by the way, the Walt Disney World Railroad.
I sure did. I put it. That's more objective, by the way. There's a lot of, I'm sorry, Disney World fans, but there's a lot of dead space in that railroad.
Oh my God,
it's a whole lot of nothing. And maybe it'll be better once
you come at Byron for that
Land
one.
And stuff open. Once again, I personally still enjoy going on the railroad. I just often out in the theme park fan sphere, I hear a lot of criticisms about that railroad. And I must say, it's got a lot of boring spots. Just saying.
He had number 8, Primeval Whirl. Number 7, Body Wars. Number 6, Tomorrowland Speedway. Number 5, Stitch's Great Escape. Number 4, Web Slingers. Number 3, Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage. Number 2, Journey into Your Imagination. And number 1, Superstar Limo. But that does it for this episode of For Your Amusement. If you're watching, make sure to like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, or if you're listening, please rate the podcast 5 stars and subscribe as well. Also, let us know in the comments if you like this format. We've been kind of trickling these out. We have fun doing them. That doesn't mean you guys have fun watching them, so let us know. And consider supporting us by joining our 4th wall, becoming a park hopper, as we're calling it, by heading to fyapod.com, as mentioned up top. It'll help us keep this madness going, but you'll also get up to 3 monthly bonus shows per month, in addition to the free show that you just watched and listened to. And you'll also find our merch there as well, if you want like a Rides hoodie, like the one I'm wearing right now. And thank you to those who are already park hoppers. Here's 10 names of e-ticketers we'd like to thank: Austin OC, Egg Tart, K-Bell 26807, River 1480, Andrew, Feisty, Shelby Deanne, Sassafras, Alex N, and Peter, Kathleen D. Peter. Thank you. Follow the pod socials at FYAPod everywhere. I'm at Ryan Bergara. Byron is at Byron A. Marin across all socials. Thank you for spending your time with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next ride. Bye-bye.